There is a very good chance that the brightly colored plastic toothbrush you used when you were 4 years old is currently sitting perfectly intact in a landfill somewhere.
Yeah.
And it will probably just remain there for the next 500 years.
It is a totally sobering image, but I mean, it's entirely scientifically accurate based on the materials we're dealing with.
Right. So I want to ask you to do something simple for a second.
Mm.
Just look around exactly where you are right now and try to count the plastic.
Oh, that's a fun exercise.
Yeah, I mean, look at the casing of your phone or the keys on your keyboard.
And buttons on your shirt.
Exactly. Even the paint on the walls or, the microscopic fibers woven into the carpet under your feet. We barely even notice it anymore because it is just omnipresent.
The sheer volume of it in our immediate field of vision is staggering when you actually stop and take inventory.
It really is. And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are looking at a material that, in a little over a century, went from literally not existing to being the most abundant human-made material on Earth.
Yep.
We want to understand the miracle and the mess of plastic, drawing entirely from our source material today.
Because it undeniably is a miracle material, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's cheap, lightweight, moldable into practically any shape, and it's incredibly durable.
But that exact list of virtues, especially the durability, is the reason it's become a massive global environmental headache.
Right, and to really understand how we got to this point of total saturation, our sources say we have to change our perspective.
How so?
We need to zoom all the way in, like way down, to grasp why plastic conquered the modern world and why it is so remarkably difficult to get rid of. We have to look at it deep down at the molecular level.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I was reading through the source material and they frequently use the word polymer.
Yes.
And I want to picture this practically. Imagine a massive, almost infinitely long chain of those plastic pot beads from when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah, the ones that snap together.
Right. Or just interlocking toy blocks, snapped together one after another, stretching out for miles. That seems to be the fundamental architecture here.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. The word itself actually gives away the structure.
Really?
Yeah, polymer comes from Greek, translating to many parts.
Ah, okay.
So that single repeating unit, the individual pot bead, or that single toy block in your analogy, is called a monomer.
Meaning one part.
Exactly. When you take thousands or even millions of these monomers and bond them together end to end, you create a polymer chain.
So plastic is essentially an incredibly long chain of identical tiny parts just strung together.
Yes, and in the case of synthetic plastics, these chains are almost always built around a backbone of carbon atoms.
Why carbon?
Well, carbon is uniquely suited for this because it forms these incredibly strong, stable bonds with its neighbors.
So it's basically the ultimate structural foundation.
Exactly. It allows these chains to grow to enormous lengths without, spontaneously falling apart.
But wait, if all plastics are just long chains of carbon, how do we get such wildly different materials?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the flimsy, soft plastic of a grocery bag feels completely different from the hard, rigid plastic of a soda bottle cap, right? Or a car bumper.
Oh, right, I see. Well, it comes down to two specific choices in the chemistry lab. First, the specific monomer you choose as your starting bead. And second, how you arrange those long chains once they are actually built.
Interesting.
So if you choose a certain starting molecule and the resulting chains just lie next to each other like a bowl of cooked spaghetti.
They can slide past each other easily.
Exactly. That molecular movement gives you a soft, flexible material like your shopping bag.
But I assume there is a way to stop them from sliding around.
There is. Chemists can introduce molecules that essentially tie those separate chains together.
Oh, like the rungs of a ladder connecting two long rails.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. The technical term is cross-linking.
Cross-linking.
Right. Once those chains are chemically tethered to one another, they can't slide. The entire structure locks up.
And you end up with a rigid, hard material, like that bottle cap.
You've got it. Pick a small molecule, string billions of copies together, and decide whether to tether them or let them slide. That is basically the recipe for every plastic on Earth.
See, I have always thought of plastic as the ultimate unnatural material, like the absolute pinnacle of synthetic human interference.
Sure, most people do.
But looking at our sources, the concept of building things out of long chemical chains isn't a human invention at all. Nature got there millions of years before we did.
Nature is actually the original master architect of polymers. I mean, you interact with them constantly.
Like what?
Well, cellulose, which is the material that provides the rigid structure for wood and leaves and plant fibers, that's a natural polymer.
Wow.
The silk of a spider's web, the keratin in your hair, the natural rubber that oozes from rubber trees, all polymers.
Yeah, and the sources mentioned, it goes straight to the core of our own biology, too. Like the DNA inside our cells, the proteins doing the heavy lifting in our bodies.
Exactly.
Those are all long chains of repeating units built on the exact same pop bead principle.
We basically just hijacked nature's blueprint.
Okay, but if nature already had this incredible blueprint, why did we decide to start from scratch? I
Well,
mean, why did we pivot away from natural ingredients to create this massive explosion of synthetic plastics?
what's fascinating here is that the pivot really happened in the early 20th century. Human chemists looked at nature's polymers and realized they didn't have to stick to nature's limited menu of starting ingredients.
Ah,
By looking at the hydrocarbon-rich molecules found in crude oil and natural gas, they found they could build entirely novel polymers from scratch.
so they were pulling monomers from fossil fuels instead of trees or plants
Right. And doing so gave them unprecedented control.
because they could tune it.
Exactly. When you build from scratch, you can tune the properties entirely to order. Need a material that is perfectly transparent but won't shatter when dropped.
We can engineer a chain for that?
Yep. Need something that resists boiling heat or insulates against electricity? We can build a chain for that too.
So this ability to custom design supermaterials sparked an absolute revolution in manufacturing.
Completely reshaping medicine, food preservation, global transportation, everything.
It makes complete sense why we went all in on this. We found a way to create cheap, custom-tuned materials. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this brings up a huge biological contradiction.
It does.
Since nature practically invented the idea of polymers, you would assume the natural world would know how to handle them. Yet when it comes to the polymers humans make, nature seems completely helpless.
That biological mismatch is actually the crux of the entire environmental issue.
Like if a leaf falls off a tree, it vanishes into the forest floor in a matter of weeks.
Right.
But if a synthetic plastic water pipe gets left in that same dirt, it can sit there for centuries. Why is that?
It comes down to the microscopic tools available in the environment. When that natural leaf hits the ground, an invisible army of bacteria and fungi immediately gets to work.
Okay.
And over millions of years of evolution, those microbes have developed highly specific enzymes. You can think of these enzymes as biological scissors.
Biological scissors.
Yeah, they are perfectly shaped to snip the chemical bonds that hold natural polymers like cellulose together.
So they have the exact right tool for the job. But what happens when they encounter a human-made plastic?
Well, they encounter an entirely novel arrangement of carbon atoms that was engineered in a lab.
Which they've never seen before.
Exactly. Our synthetic plastics have only been around for about a century.
Which is just a millisecond in evolutionary time.
Right. So when those same microbes bump into a synthetic plastic chain, their biological scissors just slide right off. They simply do not have the chemical mechanism to cut those new artificial bonds.
So because nothing in nature can eat it, a plastic item just sits there, persisting in the environment indefinitely.
Yes.
It's crazy. The very thing we engineered into the material, its absolute unyielding stability, turns out to be its fatal flaw as a pollutant.
It really is.
We wanted a medical device that wouldn't degrade on a shelf or a pipe that wouldn't rot in our walls. We designed it to never fail, and it turns out never failing looks identical to never going away.
It is the ultimate victim of its own success.
So if nature's microbes don't have the biological scissors to break these synthetic bonds, what is actually happening to the plastic we see out in the world?
Well,
Because I'll admit, there is a powerful illusion of vanishing plastic. Like when I see a plastic bottle on the beach one year and the next year it's gone, my brain wants to assume nature somehow took care of it. It didn't actually disappear, did it?
it's a comforting thought, but unfortunately, no, the bottle didn't disappear. It just shattered.
Shattered.
Yeah. Over time, prolonged exposure to ultraviolet sunlight and the mechanical pounding of ocean waves or wind cause that tough plastic to become brittle. And it starts to break apart into smaller and smaller pieces until you are left with microplastics.
How small are these fragments getting?
The standard definition is any plastic fragment smaller than a grain of rice.
Wow. Okay.
But the physical weathering process doesn't stop there. They continue to shatter down to microscopic and even nanoscopic specks that are completely invisible to the naked human eye.
Because they are that small and incredibly light, they must be highly mobile.
Extremely mobile. They are transported by wind and ocean currents to literally every corner of the globe. Scientists have found microplastics settled in the sediment at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the ocean.
That's unbelievable.
They are frozen into Arctic sea ice. They are dispersed throughout the agricultural soil where we grow our food, and they are frequently detected in drinking water.
So unsurprisingly, they have infiltrated the bodies of animals throughout the global food chain.
Yes, exactly.
And our sources point out that this includes human bodies as well. But I want to tread carefully here, because hearing that we are ingesting microplastics can instantly cause a lot of panic.
Oh, for sure.
How do our sources frame this specific issue?
The source material is very deliberate in taking an objective, data-driven stance.
Right.
It is a definitively established fact that microplastics are widespread in the environment and that humans are ingesting and inhaling them. That part is not up for debate.
Okay.
However, the specific medical consequences of that exposure are still under intense scientific investigation.
So the health impacts are simply not a settled verdict in the medical community yet.
Correct.
We shouldn't dismiss the reality of it, but we also shouldn't declare the sky is falling based on assumptions.
Precisely the point the text makes. It is a serious concern requiring rigorous, active study.
Stating the facts plainly without premature alarmism is the most responsible way to view the current science.
I completely agree.
Knowing all of this, that the chemical chains last practically forever, and that physical weathering just shatters them into invasive little specks, brings up a massive frustration.
I bet I know what it is.
I feel this every time I take out the recycling. I mean, wait a minute. I meticulously wash my takeout containers and put them in the blue bin. Aren't those triangles a promise that this is being taken care of?
Yeah, that's a common misconception. Recycling is a real and worthwhile process, but the sources are very clear that it is far from a magical solution.
Why not?
The reality of processing synthetic polymers is incredibly complex, starting with the physical sorting.
I always assumed they just dumped all the blue bins into a giant vat, melted it all down, and molded new plastic. Why can't we do that?
Because of those fundamentally different chemical architectures we discussed earlier.
Oh, right.
Different plastics have different melting points, and more importantly, their molecular structures can actually repel one another.
Seriously.
Yeah. Trying to melt a water bottle and a yogurt tub together is chemically similar to trying to blend oil and water.
Wow. Okay.
If you mix them in a melting pot, they don't form a unified, strong new material. They form a structurally weak, useless hybrid that just crumbles.
So sorting them perfectly is a non-negotiable step.
Absolutely.
Which sounds labor-intensive and really expensive.
It is.
But let's say they sort it perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this isn't like melting down an aluminum can, which you can do a million times.
Right.
If these plastics are just long chains of beads, does the intense heat of melting them somehow damage the chains themselves?
You've hit on the most significant physical limitation of plastic recycling. Heat and mechanical stress act like physical scissors on those polymers.
Oh, no.
Yeah, every time you melt a piece of plastic down to remake it, the thermal energy severs some of the carbon bonds. The immensely long chains get shorter and shorter.
And shorter chains mean a weaker material.
Yes. The recycled material is invariably of a lower structural quality than the virgin plastic.
So it's degrading.
Exactly. You can only recycle a specific piece of plastic a handful of times before the chains are so degraded that the material is virtually useless.
So it is not a closed, infinite loop. It is a downward spiral.
A downward spiral, yes.
And when you combine that downward spiral of quality with the cost of collecting it, washing away the food residue, removing the labels, and paying for that intensive sorting process, the economics must be brutal.
The financial reality is the final barrier here. The raw ingredient for brand new plastic is crude oil.
Right.
And that's heavily subsidized and often incredibly cheap to source. From a pure manufacturing standpoint, it is almost always cheaper for a company to buy high-quality virgin plastic than to buy degraded, expensive recycled plastic.
That paints a pretty clear picture of why only a tiny fraction of global plastic ever actually gets recycled.
Leaving the vast majority to be buried in landfills, burned, or left to weather into microplastics.
So what does this all mean for us? If recycling can't save us on its own, are we just doomed to drown in our own invention?
Well, the scientific consensus points toward actionable hope. but it demands acknowledging that there is no single silver bullet.
Okay.
The crisis requires a woven combination of several different approaches.
If we have to rethink our entire approach, the most obvious starting point seems to be just making less of the stuff to begin with.
Yes.
We have to stop the bathtub from overflowing before we start worrying about how to drain it.
Reducing production at the source, particularly for single-use plastics that we use for 5 minutes and throw away forever, is the most immediate and impactful intervention.
Because if we don't synthesize the polymer, we don't have to manage its centuries-long afterlife.
Precisely.
But for the products that genuinely need to be plastic-like medical equipment or specialized food storage, we clearly need a better design strategy.
We do.
If sorting is the bottleneck of recycling, shouldn't we just standardize what we make?
That is exactly the second approach. Designing products to be genuinely recyclable means abandoning complex, multi-layered plastics.
Just keeping it simple.
Right. If industries agreed to stick to just 2 or 3 standardized types of plastic, the sorting nightmare at the recycling plant becomes vastly more manageable.
And the economics of recycling improve dramatically.
Exactly.
What about the chemists who got us into this? Are they developing polymers that aren't quite so indestructible?
Oh, chemical engineering is a huge part of the proposed solution. Researchers are actively developing next-generation synthetic plastics engineered with intentional weak links in their carbon backbones.
Weak links.
Yeah, the goal is a material that retains its strength on the shelf, but is specifically designed to break apart safely and rapidly once exposed to environmental elements.
Like specific wavelength of sunlight or soil moisture.
You got it.
Okay, that handles future plastic. But what about the billions of tons already sitting in landfills and oceans? Are we just waiting on nature to eventually catch up?
Actually, we are actively trying to give nature a push.
How so?
Remember how we discussed that natural microbes lack the enzymes to cut synthetic bonds?
Right, the biological scissors.
Well, biologists are currently scouring the globe for mutated microbes that might have started figuring it out, and they have found some early promising candidates.
Wait, really?
Yeah, there are certain bacteria discovered near recycling plants that have evolved primitive biological scissors capable of slowly digesting specific types of plastic.
That sounds incredible.
Mm?
But is it actually scalable, or is it just a neat lab trick?
The sources emphasize tempering our expectations here. While these enzymes function in a controlled lab setting, scaling that biological process up to handle millions of tons of dispersed global waste is a colossal engineering challenge.
So it remains very early stage science.
Exactly.
So while we wait for chemical weak links and plastic-eating bacteria to mature, the final piece of the puzzle just has to be keeping the trash we have out of the natural environment.
Improving global waste collection infrastructure is vital. In many developing regions, formal garbage collection simply doesn't exist.
Which leads directly to plastic waste washing, straight into river systems and out to sea.
Right. Building the infrastructure to contain the waste we already generate is a massive part of the immediate solution.
It really requires pulling every lever simultaneously.
It does.
Use less, standardize our designs, engineer smarter materials, hunt for biological workarounds, and manage our physical trash better.
None of these solves the problem entirely on its own, but together they represent a pragmatic path forward.
Right.
It allows us to retain the undeniable technological and medical benefits of this material without being completely overwhelmed by its durability.
It really is the ultimate story of an unforeseen trade-off. We spent the last century being incredibly innovative.
We did.
We figured out how to string molecules together to invent a material that was affordable, adaptable, and a massive driver of human progress. But our design parameter was purely focused on making it last.
Yeah.
We learned the hard way that a thing that never wears out also never goes away.
Viewing plastics not just as everyday trash, but as polymers, as those stubborn microscopic chains of repeating units engineered not to fail, is the vital first step towards solving the problem.
Because you cannot effectively manage what you don't fundamentally understand.
Precisely.
Drawing on everything our sources told us today about the sheer, stubborn durability of these synthetic chains, it leaves me with one wild thought.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Think about the physical history of the Earth. If human civilization were to vanish tomorrow, our grandest architecture would eventually crumble.
Sure.
Steel rusts away, concrete erodes to dust, paper and wood rot back into the soil. But those synthetic plastic chains, they will stubbornly persist.
It creates a highly unique geological footprint.
Imagine a geologist, perhaps a completely different evolved species, digging through the Earth's crust 1 million years from now.
Oh, wow.
What are they going to think when they hit our era? And instead of finding dinosaur bones or stone tools, they find an entire distinct geological layer made out of compressed soda bottle caps, microscopic carpet fibers, and perfectly preserved, faded toy building blocks.
A permanent synthetic layer woven into the history of the planet itself.
It is an astonishing legacy to picture. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
The next time you pick up a plastic fork or a grocery bag, I hope you see the microscopic chains holding it all together just a little bit differently. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you next time.